Good afternoon, everyone. I will turn this meeting over to Finance and Administration Committee Chair, Councilmember Betsy Wilkerson.
Thank you, Council President, and welcome everyone. I'm not jumping the gun today, so we will not have to have voted on our minutes twice. So there you go. First, let's do call with the approval of the minutes from February 22nd. Can I get a motion for that, please?
So moved. Second.
Moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. And somebody's on a little echo. Thank you. We're going to jump right into our discussion request today, and we're going to start with Eric Polson and discuss our federal lobbyist contract. Eric?
Oh, no, I think that's me. Actually, I think it's me, Councilmember Wilkerson.
Oh.
Mr.
Take
Polson's
it away.
out of town today. And this is an update on our contract. We've been very happy with our federal lobbyists. We've gotten to know them over this last year and started even a closer relationship in the last few months. And we're just updating this for another year. And they've been attending our regular legislative work groups on Fridays and really helping us on the COVID relief package that we just got through the Congress, and also getting us ready for a request for infrastructure and transportation. And we've been working closely with the administration to coordinate our requests. So this is just kind of a technicality to update it. But if anyone has any questions, let me know.
Councilmember Munn?
I will just underscore the importance of having this contract, and this year proves it more than ever. And I'm certainly pleased with how we are integrating him into our legislative meetings that we have weekly right now, and you really taking it to the next level for the city of Spokane. We are at the table, and I'm very pleased about where this is going and hope we can continue.
Great. Questions or comments? Hearing none. Thank you. Let's move on to our budget software update. Ms. Tanya Wallace.
Thank you, Councilmember Wilkerson and members of the City Council. The information that we're going to be talking about is on page 16 of your packet. And I am going to share the presentation with you. Okay, so this is a long time coming. We've been planning this for some time for a financial planning and management application. So I'm very excited to finally bring this to you, council members, out of a lot of staff work that has gone on for many, many months now. And again, a huge thank you for approving this in our 2021 capital improvement plan. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the strategic goal and why we're doing this. And that also comes in the form of the justifications for this project, some of the outcomes that we're going to want to achieve through this, and then exactly what is the product and what is the project that we're going to be talking about. So I love this quote from Questica, and that is the product that we're talking to you about today, and there is a contract to engage with Questica and purchase their product. But I love this quote: "Enough with the busy, start being brilliant." The city process is definitely a lot of busy work by a lot of brilliant minds coming together. But one of the strategic goals in our plan is to make the budget development process easier, collaborative, and transparent. And that is a real challenge when it is done primarily with Excel and email spreadsheets and email. So in this list, all these bullets here, implement a budget development and management application is the top objective in order to achieve this goal. And that is specifically what we're here today, council members. We also will start to transform the process to be more inclusive and actively involve department directors, mayoral leadership, city council, and the public. Provide real-time information. This is just critical to the decision-making that goes on at the city, and sometimes it can be hampered with just Excel and spreadsheets and various different forms of communication. We'd also like to establish a rolling forecast and different scenarios that we can evaluate under different circumstances. For example, if we bring on another fire station, we'd want to know what the operating impact is. We'd want to know when we feel that impact so we can plan for it accordingly. And then connect operational data to the financial data. This really goes to the Power Business Intelligence model that the city has implemented. But this particular platform and what we really are aiming for is to connect those two. And lastly, offer budget simulation to citizens to inform priorities, bolster involvement, and support understanding. The city has already started down this path, so this should not be a huge leap from where we've been. Again, justification, we've kind of mentioned a little bit of this, of Excel spreadsheets and email. We want to move away from that. It is definitely better to have everything in a single platform. We're all having the same information. We're all using the same data. And the next point is probably the largest justification. Eliminate literally hundreds of hours of manual processes, which could lead to potential errors. One city, I saw a quote, had estimated $85,000 in productivity savings. My estimation, just from what I've observed in my first year with the city, is that we will save somewhere between at least $200,000 to $250,000 in productivity savings. That is quite significant. Again, a single place to manage all budget change requests. Right now, they come in mostly through email. Sometimes we just hear about them. They're not really documented anywhere. Now we can provide a platform to manage all budget change requests, whether it be during the development process, the annual development process, or in the interim budget management process, and then visually track the process as it progresses through the various stages of development. The products that we're putting in front of you, Council, will actually show visual time for people to see when it progresses out of the department, moves to the budget office, moves to the mayor's office, and when then it moves to the city council and finally into the public realm. And certainly increase the involvement from the department directors. There is a lot of back and forth that the accountants do with the department directors. Again, goes to those productivity hours that are involved. But this will have increased involvement with those directors. They will visually see what's going on. They will have access, and they will have to sign off on their budget so that they have full understanding what is included. Easy ability to incorporate operational data, that is coming. Read-only access to all relevant staff and leadership. This goes to our transparency, to the heart of it. We want to provide this information. We want to share this information. And this provides an easy way to do that is not labor intensive. And then easily assemble all that data together for publication that is directly linked to that data. Here's some of the outcomes, and we've kind of highlighted them. So I'm not going to go through a lot of this. There are a lot of really fabulous outcomes moving forward. Here, council members, is the heart of it. It actually looks like this. This could be our dashboard, which are all customized to meet whatever our needs are. The core modules in this product will be an operating module, a separate salary and position planning module, capital, and this capital is not just 1 year. This is multi-year capital planning. And then Also included is performance and performance indicators that could fully link to, and I know we don't have it, but if we needed it, it would link to a statistical ledger. And a lot of times these statistical ledgers are actually required in part of what is reported in the CAFR. And then it has advanced calculation engines, far more detailed than what we need to talk about at this time, and then a full reporting center. Part of that reporting center is what you're seeing here in this screenshot of a dashboard. So again, the dashboard can be completely customized, include whatever the data is that is of interest to you. And then transparency and stakeholder engagement. These are other elements of the product. Open book, transparency and visualizations. That is what the public would see through the city's webpage. Also a budget book. And this is where it's directly linked to the data. So as the data changes or we update, so does the budget book automatically. And then finally, Balancing Act. This is actually a sister component, so it's not, that's the little asterisk there, this is not part of the contract that's in front of you today. All of the other elements are part of the contract in front of you today. But Balancing Act is a sister company, add-on application that provides public budget simulation and links to the data that we provide. So that would be a future consideration for you. So exactly what is the project? The project cost is Questica with a contract price of about $350,000. That is in front of you today. We're also in a budget realm. We're looking at preserving $50,000 for potential add-ons. That would be part of that sister company that I just talked about. And that would be for further deliberation. We're not asking for approval at this time. And then about $100,000 of contingency. And this is largely when you're doing a project like this and you don't know exactly how the configuration is going to go or exactly what kind of reports we're going to want. This provides a healthy contingency so that we can customize when or if applicable or design those public, those reports that we might need. So the team will actually be three elements of the team. There is a core team. They've actually been assembled and have started this review many months ago. And then there will be a governance team that will oversee the project and primarily spearhead any hurdles or barriers that might come down the path. And then a user team. We would definitely be inviting a few council members, maybe a staff member or two, to be part of the user team to really help test the product and make sure it's hitting the mark that we're all envisioning. So the schedule. There are really three phases of this project. Phase 1 for 2021 is just implementing the product. I don't envision that we would have the proper amount of time to implement it and have it in full use to develop our 2022 budget. But we should have enough implemented that we can use it for analysis and help with some of the future questions that usually that are coming down the line when we start negotiating the 2022 budget. But to get started, we would not have enough of the product implemented to develop the 2022 budget. But phase 2 would be to start to develop the public view. What will the public see? How do we start that transparency conversation with the public and publish certain information? And then phase 3, if we want to continue down this path, is the budget simulation with the public. So we are really looking at 3 full years to go from all the way start from where we are to full public budget simulation. So what are the immediate next steps? Definitely we are requesting that you approve the contract just to get the product coming on board and to start the implementation. The implementation process could last as long as 4 to 8 months. Confirm the teams and all the team roles. And then through at least April, possibly into May, complete the project charter so that we all have a full understanding of the details, and then schedule that fabulous kickoff project that I'm looking forward to. So with that, Council, I'm going to stop right here and be open to your questions.
Any questions for Tanya?
Hey, Tanya.
Yes.
Councilmember Cathcart, just really quickly, I love this program. I think it looks great and certainly something that's going to be really beneficial. My question is, in terms of, you said that it won't be ready for public consumption until phase 3. And I'm just wondering, is that more the length of time there, is that more of an internal city thing, or is that more on the program side, the app side?
It will be probably a little bit of both. I just want to make sure that when we do go public with it and we start to publish, it may be in very limited amounts until staff is fully aware of the programming and what is needed. I know a few cities that have done this and started with just an initial blush of publication, and I think we will be ready for that probably in the December, January timeframe next winter. But for the full vision to really play out, it's going to take a little bit longer than that.
So I would just say, if there's opportunities to maybe put something out there in sort of a beta mode and make it very clear, lots of disclaimers, this is very much a beta, just giving the public an opportunity to look at the numbers, play with the numbers, better understand. I just think that'd be really beneficial.
I completely agree with you. Anything else, council members?
Councilmember Munn.
I think Councilmember Kinnear was first.
Yes.
Okay,
Councilmember
you can sum up what I've just said to Councilmember Munn. I think this is a great idea. My question is, will it get department heads and division directors up to a standard that they not only understand what their budgets are, but understand how they can move money, how they can direct their budgets a little bit tighter, and not necessarily with or need finance to help them. So there's a little bit more control for them, and there's not so much of a overseer type of mentality with the budget. Is that part of this plan?
Thank you, Councilmember Kinnear. That is a large part of the vision and the intent. Yes, the department heads will have full visibility. You will have full visibility. They will no longer need to go to an accountant to run reports for them. We've talked a lot about you want to hold people accountable. We all want to hold ourselves accountable to the budgets that are approved. This is a tool that helps that effort. It's very difficult to manage a program financially when you don't really have all the financial tools to do so. This provides that financial tool, and we'll put it right in their hands to do so.
That's fabulous. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Munn.
Hi, Tanya. Just a couple comments, and then I have a question. I know that our staff has worked without proper software for probably more than a decade, and it's been amazing. They've been as patient for us to come to this moment, and I know we've saved the citizens a lot of money because the cost of these products have become so much more competitive, but the time has come for us to enter this next century. And my questions are about, though, the life of the product and then the annual updates on the licensing. What is that going to cost us?
Thank you. Yes, there is an annual price tag, and I do apologize that is not flowing right off the top of my head at this moment. But we will get that for you.
Because that's, like all the other costs that we have with computer software licenses, something we want to manage. And are we having a contract with that, so we can at least anticipate usually we do a 3-year for the maintenance and that sort of software support, that sort of thing. And just would like to know that.
Yes, I will get that table broken out. And I apologize, council members. I do not have that right off the top of my head. For that, I know in the contract that's in front of you, there is the maintenance, the annual maintenance, as well as the one-time cost. And a bulk of this price is for that one-time cost to get it implemented. But I will get the annual price for you so that you can review that. I do anticipate, and I'm hoping that we can kind of track this as we're implementing this project, to really track the hours that are saved. And that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. But just from what I observed in this year, I'm going to say, Paul, he's sitting right here in the room, but just to do one upload, it's over 160 files, Excel files that get uploaded. And it will take over 8 hours to do that. And then we have to run the reports, and only then are we even getting the snapshot of where we're at. And we do that several times during the development process. So I already know we're going to save many, many hours. And if we put a soft dollar cost to that, that's why I'm saying I believe we're going to save more than $250,000 in productivity a year, which is more than enough to cover the annual cost of this product. But the biggest benefit is to provide that transparency so that we all have a view of what is going on. We're not dependent on people to get into FMS and print out a report, and then in some cases, translate that report into an Excel spreadsheet into a format that we understand, just so we can review it. That's hours and hours of time. So yes, we're going to have a lot of productivity hours saved, a lot of productivity dollars saved in exchange for an annual cost. But I will get that information for you.
Council President?
Yeah, Tanya, I also wanted to support this initiative and thank you for your leadership on it. Like Councilmember Cathcart, the sooner the public's involved, the better, but that's just going to be what it is. But you had some placeholders for team members and governance, and I'm just checking to make sure that the council members on the budget committee, that one of them and that our council budget staff can be involved with that so that we make sure that there's a clear link to real-time data for council. So that will save a lot of time, I think, from your staff so that we don't have to go through you. I just wanted to confirm that you were thinking that way.
Yes, Council President, I definitely was. That is one of our next steps. It would not be a complete project or a complete team if we did not have a couple representatives from the council office participating in this project in a meaningful way.
Yep. All right. Great.
Thank you. Anything else for Tanya? I think we're all looking forward to the 21st century accounting at City Hall. So thanks. Next, we have Michelle Hughes talking about identified closing funds. Michelle?
Do we not have sound in the room?
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Probably several times. Hello? Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Councilmember Wilkerson and council members. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here, and hopefully this will work. This is actually the first time I've ever had to do this. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So this afternoon, what I'm going to present to you is some capital funds that we have identified in the year-end process and cleaning up our financial statements. So in reviewing the city's funds during the 2020 financial reporting process, 3 funds have been identified with fund balance and 0 expenditures for over a number of consecutive years. The first fund is Fund 1600, the Capital Improvements Fund. It is a special revenue fund that was established in 2007 by Ordinance C-34024, Section 1. It is in the SMC, the Spokane Municipal Code, Section 78115. It's been dormant since 2016. It was to be used as a fund for receipt of all monies designated by the City Council for payment of any capital improvements included as part of the adopted capital improvement program each year. The amount that was available as of 2/26/2021 was $82,858. The second fund is Fund 1900, which is the Cumulative Reserve Fund. It is a special revenue fund. It's established with the same ordinance, 34024, Section 1. It is in Section 78109 of the Spokane Municipal Code. It has actually been dormant since the FMS conversion back in year 2000. The fund's purpose was to include the accumulation of funds for capital outlay and equipment, supplies and materials, and the construction, alteration, replacement, repairs of public buildings, and the acquisition of necessary building sites, and the replacement and repair of equipment now owned or hereafter acquired by the city, as also as accumulation of funds for health and sanitation purposes and construction, alteration, replacement, and repair of sewers, drains, and making of any public improvement. Expenses may include in the city's annual budget an estimate amounts required for them to meet the public expense for the ensuing year, and tax levy made within the limits of the authorized law by law for said item. And said item and levy may be repeated from year to year until the judgment of the City Council. The amount required for the specific purpose has been raised or accumulated. The amount available in this fund as of February 26, 2021 was $22,559. Third fund is Fund 3101, which is the Improvement Projects Construction Fund. Capital Projects Fund, established in 2007 with Ordinance C34024, Section 1. I could not find this actual fund in the Spokane Municipal Code. It has been dormant since 2011, and its revenue sources were tax anticipation notes. And what the definition of that is generally the tax anticipation note is issued by a state or local government within the understanding that a certain amount of taxes will be collected within an appreciable period of time. The note allows the municipality to fund capital projects now rather than waiting for the collections of taxes. The amount available in this fund as of February 26th was $35,195. So in summary, we have three funds totaling about $140,622, and we are seeking approval to close these funds to another fund and program for capital project purposes needed within the city. Recommendation from Finance is it's our recommendation to close these funds and transfer the $140,622 to the Asset Management Fund for capital outlay. Reasons for this to consider this recommendation is the Administrative Services Program within the Asset Management Fund used to receive $500,000 a year for citywide capital projects, and this funding was cut in 2021 during the budgetary process. Placed here, the funds would be used for their intended purpose of capital outlay. Does anybody have any questions?
Councilmember Munn.
Hi, question on the TAN. Was that tied to a note that we were taking from a bank or something, anticipating funds coming in? Or what's that tied to?
You're talking about?
The last one, the tax anticipation note.
Yes. So for my definition and understanding of everything that I'm having difficulty here.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
My reading of definitions and things, everything that I understand is it was a tax anticipation note because we hadn't received property taxes. So we did the note so that we could do capital funding up front, and then our property taxes that came in paid that back.
Right, but what I'm wondering is, did the note get consummated? Were we paying interest on that note to somebody? Who was that note with? That's what I'm trying to chase down.
I do not know. This was before my time, and sure. I have to try to go back and do some research. I just tried to follow it through the financial system.
I mean, my guess is we paid it off, and this was just the leftover in there, but we should probably figure that out. Just to clean it up. But I know there's some much needed capital projects in a couple of our north side neighborhoods for playground equipment that I just had my eye on this, thinking this could be something we might want to consider because they're not going to be able to replace those playgrounds for 3 years, and coming out of COVID, we're going to need them. So just thought I'd mention that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Mumm, for that. Any other questions or comments around these funds? Thank you, Michelle. If you could just kind of nail down the question that Councilmember Mumm had, I'm sure we'd all like to know that answer also. So we'll just go for it from there.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to D, the SBO to move position from Public Works Utility Fund. And that's Kyle and Paul.
Paul, do you want me to lead off on this?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm just here to answer any questions on the financial side, but I'll leave it up to the experts to handle the substance behind it.
Okay. So this is proposed SBO to move an existing occupied position from the Public Works Division budget over into the Engineering Department budget. This is the incumbent in this position is Barbara Patrick, who is classified as an administrative specialist over to support the division director, which has been utilized significantly in the past, certainly back when Rick was the division director. As Scott has moved in and we're also working with Marlene moving forward, they have not felt that they've been able to fully utilize this position. And so actually going back a little over a year, right before COVID, Scott and I had proposed to see if Barbara could come in and support our administrative team, because we had lost a lot of our incumbent administrative personnel, and thought we could really use her expertise and her citywide knowledge, because our admin team supports not just engineering, but some of the other second floor operations, like we do some support for asset management and for environmental programs, and then the division itself. So we wanted to get this position moved over into the appropriate budget of where it's sitting now. She's doing fantastic leading our admin team. And then eventually we would probably like to convert this to the proper classification, which would be as an office manager, which would be leading the admin team that supports all of the myriad of work that we generate, getting the capital projects out and delivered.
Karen, Councilmember.
I don't know if you can answer this, Kyle, or not, but my first thought goes to the employee, and how does the employee feel about this?
Very excited about it. Definitely wants to do it.
Paul, was there anything you want to add to that?
I was going to say, if anybody had a chance to look at the SBO, this section starts, I think, PDF, page 33 in the packet. It looks a little strange. Public Works is able to charge out to the other utilities for their funding for the department. So on the two side, the Public Works would see a reduction in revenue they're able to collect based off of this position. But Engineering Services also charges out, so they would, we anticipate they would be able to recover some of the cost, if not all the cost, for the position in the general fund.
Any other questions or comments? Council President Beggs?
Yep, you saw me thinking about it. Just quick question, we have a new division director coming in at Public Works, and this position used to support the division director up until a year ago. And I'm just looking for some assurances that there's enough administrative support for the incoming director. I don't know if anyone can speak to that.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, Marlene and I have been talking about that recently, and she definitely supports this move. The nice thing is that and we're just talking about how exactly my admin team is going to support everything that she needs moving forward. So we're working towards that, and it's kind of nice because it won't be isolated to a single individual to be responsive. We'll have the actual whole team engaged in whatever she needs.
All right, I think that took care of that. Any other comments? All right, let's move on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The SBO for the police field contract. Paul, back to you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Wilkerson. So the next item is the SBO for the Police Guild contract, which is on page 35 of your PDF, page 35 of your packet. The SBO totals approximately $9.8 million, and this represents the back pay as part of the Guild agreement for 2.25%, 3%, 3%, 3%, and 2.5% over the life of the contract. Happy to take any questions.
Council members? Thank you, Paul. This has been before us several times, and I think we're pretty much all in agreement where we're going. All right, no other comments or questions. We'll keep moving right along. Let's go into the SBO for the system support fleet management with Paul and Erica.
Thank you very much again. So this is on PDF page 38 of your packet. There's an SBO for system support for citywide fleet management applications. It is currently set up to be funded half from the solid waste collection fund from salary vacancies savings, and $30,000 from the fleet services fund to pay for a position in the IT fund, business systems analyst 2 position, to support the M5 asset management software system and the Rubicon system, which supports our recycling system. And Erica Jacobo is, I believe, on the line. She's more the subject matter expert on this one. And I believe Eric Finch has an invite as well, if they wanted to speak to the substance of it.
Hi, this is Erica Jacobo. I've been working with fleet services as well as solid waste collection now for about 3 years. I am a continuous improvement analyst, realistically a business systems analyst, but I lead the continuous improvement efforts around the city in the project management office. And I've been kind of filling this role now for the past 3 years. We implemented Rubicon about 2.5 years ago. And M5, AssetWorks M5 has been with the city for about 20 years. There is nobody currently filling this position for either systems, and of course, both systems are quite large. The M5 system, it's our fleet management information system that both fleet services and now fire maintenance is on. And realistically, without having somebody in this position, we're really not realizing the full potential of our investment in both of these systems. M5 alone, we own modules that we haven't even been able to implement because there isn't somebody with the education and the knowledge of database schema in order to actually move the department forward within that. Rubicon is a large system that's going to be integrating with our utility information system. We're doing route optimizations within it, and so having the support for solid waste as well is extremely important, as it's taking away capacity from other people that aren't really in that position.
Thank you, Erica. Questions, Council President?
Yeah, Erica, I couldn't quite tell from the packet or the report. Is this more about software that manages dispatch of vehicles, or is it manage the actual vehicles, like what type and what their costs are for maintenance and how old they are and mileage and things like that, or is it both?
It's both. So the Rubicon system is the route management system that solid waste collection utilizes, the tablets that manage their routes within the cars, as well as the billing to the customers, which is why we'll be implementing with the UIS system. And the fleet management system is doing exactly that, managing the cost of the vehicles, the purchasing, the mileage, the preventative maintenance, the actual, any other type of maintenance that's going on. Okay. It's everything involved with that.
All right, great. That sounds like it would be excellent to utilize that. Thanks.
I would have to concur, Council President Beggs, if we're not getting the full maximum output that we have invested in, that would be concerning. Did you want to speak to that at all, Paul? No, we're good. Any other questions? All right, then let's go on to Mike Loudon and access frames and covers. Are you with us, Mike?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you, Councilmember Wilkerson and the rest of the council members. This item is for purchasing of access covers and frames, formerly known as rinsing covers, manhole covers. It was decided to go with a value blanket this year. We normally would just, put it out for bid, get a list together what we need to put it out for bid and purchase. With all the street projects and continued maintenance that we do, we found that we were actually having to do this more than once a year. In the past, we probably only did it once every year, maybe every 2 years. So the value blanket seemed like the most efficient means to go forward with this. And so with the guidance of the purchasing department, that's how we did it.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike? All right, hearing none. Let's go on to H, the SBO for School District, and John DeLay's with us. John?
I'm doing this from the control room. This SBO addresses the $6,400 request from Spokane Public Schools for PEG funds to purchase camera equipment for educational access programming. Typically, the PEG users identify their anticipated needs before the budget process begins, but this came into us after the 2021 budget was adopted. Are there any questions?
My question is location where these funds will be placed at. Is there a specific school site? Do we know that, John?
Pardon?
Do we know the specific site these funds will be utilized at?
They're actually in the District 81. They'll be in the downtown office. There's two. They just added another producer shooter. So this allows them to get another camera so they can work both of them out of the same office. And it supports all of School District 81's equipment needs.
Thank you. Councilmember Cathcart?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, so do students utilize this? Do they go down to the district office and utilize this equipment, or is it used for something else? I'm just not sure.
No, this is actually for production for their school district channel 17, I believe. And what it is, it's basically promoting programs that they do, getting information out to general public and as well as schools independently.
Okay.
Thank you, John. So we have number I, which is North Monroe Signs, which came to us late. So if Carly can speak to this, that'd be great. If not, we are willing to defer it to a later time for administration to figure it out. Carly, what's your thoughts on that?
I would actually, George Dahl is here, and I would really like to turn it over to him. He's been managing this project from the get-go because it's funded with CDBG dollars. So George can give us an update kind of on where we're at with it.
Yeah, hi everyone, this is George. Thanks Carly for giving me a minute here. So I think there's been a little bit of miscommunication about what's going on with the sign. This is a project that's been underway with the neighborhoods for some time now. We did hire a landscape architecture firm to help with the design, help us get out to bid for this sign for the two neighborhoods, Emerson Garfield and North Hill. We went out to bid originally on September 11th of 2020 for this project. We had a pre-bid walkthrough. I think it was in that second or third week in September. We only had one contractor show up, the landscape architect that we've hired to do the design work and work with the neighborhoods on this. He was present there, and we were able to talk with a contractor, and based on the scope of work and the budget that we had, it became pretty apparent it was going to be difficult to meet that budgetary constraint that we had on the sign. We allowed the bidding process to proceed, and at the end of the bidding process did not receive any responsive bids. So from there, we reached back out to the landscape architect and said, we need to try and find a way to value engineer this so that it's more in line with the budget that we have available for this project. The landscape architect worked on that. In early February, we got the redesign with the value engineering into it, and it's a matter of us going out to bid and see if we can get a responsive contractor to bid on the project. So that's where we're at with this project. It is not canceled. It's proceeding, but it has a lot of budget constraints. The design, the intricacies of what has gone into this project are very expensive to construct, and we have the budgetary constraints on the amount of CDBG funds that are going into this project. Since it's a CDBG funded project, it's got all of the public works requirements on it for state and federal prevailing wages, plus all the construction equipment and construction supply costs on top of it. So we're dealing with kind of a perfect storm on this project with all the costs being where they are now in the construction industry and the budget that we have available for it.
Thank you. Councilmember Stratton.
Hey, George, the last activity that I can remember was, it's been a while ago, but I was at the Emerson Garfield neighborhood meeting and the North Hill meeting when they chose the design. They chose the design that they wanted. So we don't have to change the design, right? This is just money not available to get the sign in. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the design itself is similar. It's not exactly the same. And I can send you all the design documents and all the bidding documents that we have as well, so you can take a look at that. A lot of it had to...
It's the design they chose, right? It's the design that both neighborhoods chose, correct?
Yeah, so it has to do more with the construction materials. So the metal that was being used was going to be a continuous sheet of metal that was going to be very expensive, particularly with the thickness of it. And so it just had really high fabrication costs associated with it. So it's been broken into more panels. There's two different alternative bids and designs that still are within the spirit of what the neighborhoods worked with the landscape architect on. It's just trying to find ways to save some of those construction costs.
So the only thing that I would recommend is that before we do anything, we take those out to both neighborhoods so they can get a look at what that sign's actually going to look like. I would do that sooner than later. Thanks, George.
Yeah.
Councilmember Mumm.
Yeah, thank you, George and Carly, for getting back to us so quickly on this, because there was some misinformation and some folks had thought that the whole project had been canceled. So thank you. I think that we got to that information to them quickly enough. So the concern I have is the cost of the design versus the cost of the project. You know, I don't know how it got away from us that it was more than, well, at least 25% of the project. Is that typical?
For CDBG funded projects, it's not uncommon for the budgets to blow up. And a lot of it has to do with contractors just don't want to deal with all the requirements that the federal funding has. When they find out that it's a public works project, and this happens with our nonprofit providers, we'll have contractors that'll give a price, and then when they find out that it's actually going to be bid as a public works because of the federal mandates, that's when costs will really escalate quickly, or contractors just won't bid on it at all. So it's really difficult to get competitive bidding with the CDBG projects with how small they are.
Well, I really like your idea, Councilmember Stratton. We need to just touch base. If we're modifying it in any way, the neighborhood would love to have an update on it because they've been heavily involved.
Yes, and there was a lot of time spent with city staff and those neighborhood councils, those two neighborhood councils, to get exactly what it was that they wanted. So I would just be safe to make sure that they're okay with anything that's changed in it.
And I'll just follow up with what the rest of the council may not know, which makes this sign so great, is that when you enter one neighborhood, you see one side, then when you come in the other way, you see the other side. So when you're going to North Hill and going up the hill, it's kind of a welcome to North Hill. And when you're coming down North Hill, it's sort of like welcome to, Emerson Garfield. So it's a great cooperative venture between the two neighborhoods.
First of all, thank you, George and Carly. Place making in neighborhood is very important. People like to have their neighborhoods identified, so I really support going back out to the neighborhoods to make sure it's really what they thought they were getting for the funds that was allocated to them. So thank you again for that timely response, because we were like, there we go. All right, on to downtown parking analysis. Chris.
Council members, if it's all right, this was somewhat of a placeholder until Chris got through the work study session last Thursday. So we would respectfully request that we just move on from this. We know that the SBO and the SIP are coming onto the agendas next week, and that Ms. Becker is scheduling some other additional time to work with Council President Beggs and get his concerns fully vetted.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Tanya.
Mm-hmm.
Look forward to just thank you, Tanya. We will move on then. So with that, we're going to go to our COVID monthly update, and we have Amber up.
Good afternoon, council members. Thanks for the time today. So I just have a real brief kind of HR update for the COVID monthly update, and really just to highlight that we keep sending out the COVID weekly report, and we're still in a pretty long stretch of single-digit cases. So last week marked the 9th week where we've been in single-digit cases. So I think that just continues to be an encouraging trend and something that we are seeing also out in the community. And then I did want to just follow up on a lot of the questions that were asked the last time that I was at this meeting. There was a number of questions and comments, and I relayed those. So I left that meeting and relayed those back to our team. And I actually invited Sarah Nuss to come and provide more of an emergency management type update, because really most of those questions, the majority of those questions, were really not HR type questions. They really fall into the emergency management area of responsibility. And Sarah is really the most appropriate person to speak to those. So she's actually here today, and I will pitch it to her and just stay on in case there's any questions at the end.
Thank you, Amber, and thank you, council members, for having me. I've been getting a lot of, one-off emails just asking questions about things that I think we should already be sharing collectively, in this environment where we're public-facing. So I just wanted to address a couple of things that were brought up and then leave it open for some questions and opportunities for how I can continue to engage to close those education gaps. So related to everything COVID, and especially at this time with vaccinations and clinics and that, SRHD is the lead on that work. That's common across the state and the U.S. They are the ones directed by the State Department of Health to do this work. Now, all that means is we are considered a supporting partner in that. That means that we connect with them regularly to see what staffing support they might need, what bench work they might need, how we can continue putting out their messaging. For example, Brian Connington works with Kelly Hawkins, their PIO, to make sure that all the messaging is parallel to what they're looking to put out. And if there's any information that comes up on our end that we would like to see, we reach out through that mechanism to coordinate with SRHE to make sure that we are giving the public and our electeds the information that they're looking for. In addition, we've been reaching out and things like I'll get questions about, is the city willing to stand up a vaccination clinic for our city staff who become eligible? And those are very relevant and very great questions. We've been meeting a lot with our HR team and our reopening team to talk about what that looks like. So we don't want to get caught, in a situation where our staff are eligible to be vaccinated, but there isn't enough infrastructure in place for them to actually get vaccinated. The challenge at this time is that, up until maybe last week, we hadn't been getting enough vaccines to fully vaccinate the folks in our community that were eligible. But the infrastructure is there. We've got enough. We've got the mass vaccination clinic at the arena that is being run by Safeway and the state. We have our clinics and our pharmacies participating. So the issue, as of the last discussion I had about this, isn't that there isn't enough capability in our community to do those staff vaccinations and the like. It's more that we're not getting enough to this point. However, with President Biden's declaration and some supporting work at the state, we now know that more vaccinations will be coming even quicker than we expected, and the eligibility will be changing. To that, I won't speak to that. But so what that means is we are doing the planning behind the scenes so that if we determine that once our folks, our staff are eligible, that we make sure that there is enough infrastructure in place for them to get vaccinated. So it's more of a how do we make sure not to duplicate the work that SRHD and our other vaccination partners are doing, and how do we best support them to make sure that the need is being met beforehand instead of the day of that becoming an eligibility. Two more things. So many of you know that we have internal COVID planning meetings on Monday mornings at 9 and Thursday mornings at 9. The first meeting is kind of a let's all brainstorm on how we can work to get our community to move to the next phase of, opening it for COVID. And the Thursday meeting is where I bring information from the Tuesday recovery meeting that is a collective that SRHD runs, and it's all of our electeds and some other folks who are the policymakers. I bring that education to the Thursday meeting, and that's where we discuss and try and find out what information we're looking for, what data points do we need, what is SRHD saying, what is behavioral health partner saying, and how do we take that information and give it to our citizens, our residents, our tourists, our community members, as well as our staff. I believe those are the two updates I have, so I'm going to pause now and give you some opportunity for questions and opportunities for me to bring more education.
Councilmember Munn.
Hi, Sarah. So I'm one of those people who used to get my flu vaccine on, at City Hall, and many of us have done that. So what I'm hearing you say is right now it's up to each individual employee to go seek out their individual vaccine, and the city of Spokane is choosing not to have an on-site or facilitate an on-site at this time.
At this time, that is correct. Based on the need and those who are eligible right now, the number of folks who would even attend that could potentially is pretty low. So until we even got to a phase where everyone were eligible, and then we were really looking at a large volume of folks and trying to get them vaccinated as quickly as possible, we would be looking at, okay, but what are we trying to do? The goal is to vaccinate as many people as possible. Okay, now how do we achieve that? If our infrastructure in our community through SRHD and our partners is working well, then there's really a duplicative effort for us to take that on if it's not a large burden of need, if that makes sense.
I guess I would challenge that that's a duplicative effort because, City Hall, we are government employees serving our citizens, and many of us, certainly not in the city council office, but, we have first responders, we have police department, we have firefighters now eligible. And I think deferring to the regional health department and each individual employee to chase down whether they're going to go to their doctor or whatever, I would just like to see more leadership at the city, because we certainly could do it for the flu vaccine. I would like to see us also do it for the COVID vaccine. What would you need from us to help stand that sort of thing up so we can start serving the public in a better fashion?
That's a great question, and I definitely share your concern for making sure that we hold up our responsibility to make sure that our staff get access to those vaccines. So that would actually probably be a better question for Mike Lopez, because what we would do in theory, what we've been discussing, is we would adopt the model that they have implemented, the EMS task force, to get our countywide and citywide first responders vaccinated. And last I talked to him, we were only at 50% of our firefighters in our city being vaccinated because they chose not to go. So we're also not just facing the opportunity to provide vaccines, but also, if we were to stand up a resource like this, how many people would we actually expect to take it up, and would it be a burden of resource realistically. So to ask what is needed from you folks, I think this is it, starting a conversation and offering your support. And what I would recommend is bringing Mike into the conversation, looking at the number of folks who would be interested in getting that vaccine and who have not been able to so far, and then looking at what that would entail, especially as far as the funding goes of operating such a clinic.
So in terms of the funding, I would expect CARES dollars would be available for that. We are kind of the funding folks, and I would think that reopening City Hall would be a priority that we'd all like to talk about. So I guess, so you're referring us back to Mike Lopez, who has presented to us on this and has some great ideas. So you want us to go back there to have him take the lead on this?
Perhaps just bringing him into the conversation with myself and perhaps Marlene Feitch, who's been working on the reopening of City Hall plan. We all work collectively. I think this is more of just a conversation of what are we actually trying to achieve, and is that work being done already? And if it is being done and if it's meeting our needs, where can we lean in to support? So not deferring it to him, it's not his problem, it's all of our problem, but taking some more time to talk about this, because we are meeting offline in the planning part, but as far as if you folks want it to happen and it needs to be a no, you're going to do this, then that's where we take the next step. So maybe we could schedule some time on another upcoming meeting where we can truly talk about this in grit and detail.
I would love to see a plan. And maybe there aren't that many people that are eligible in the city, and maybe you've already done the analytics on that, but that seems to be changing almost on a weekly basis of who's eligible. So I'd love to see the city of Spokane take the lead on this. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate that. I definitely think we could draft something up to talk about what the situation is, what we're looking at, maybe some triggers, and then bring that back to this group for review.
Councilmember Kinnear.
Thanks. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for this. I just want to echo Councilmember Munn's comments because I think there's a lot of confusion and people are scrambling, trying to figure out where to get vaccinated. Then they're being told there are no appointments, but even though they may qualify. And I think Councilmember Munn is right. We absolutely have to be the leaders in this. We are the city, and people are asking us and looking to us to offer them solutions. So it's not so much of a scramble on where to get vaccinated, when to get vaccinated, if they are eligible. And I think weekly updates are absolutely vital because things are changing really, really quickly. We are going to be getting more vaccines. We are going to be getting CARE dollars. The fire department is already vaccinating people at the training center. So I'd like to ramp this up and put it in overdrive a little bit and not just keep going the way we are, but let's accelerate our speed so that people are feeling like they have up-to-date information on a regular basis.
Absolutely. Before we go on, I can see Councilmember Stratton really quick. So I'm not sure if you're talking about employees or the community at large, but perhaps you're talking about both. Councilmember
I'm talking about both. I'm talking about the employees, certainly, but we have community members that are confused and calling us as well and are looking to the city to lead, and there's nobody there. So that, I think, is the vacuum that we have right now.
And I just, while on this call, got an email from Lisa asking if I could start doing regular Tuesday updates at study session, bringing some of that information and taking this as a more regular topic. So the good news is, yes, we're going to start doing that. So thank you.
Councilmember Stratton.
I guess I would just, my point of view is that any calls that I get, I'm able to either send links of updates when I respond to people. I think the Regional Health District has done a great job. I mean, they've been very, very helpful with some of my constituents who have called. The only thing I want to be clear about is I don't want us to compete with the population out there that still needs the vaccine, that are waiting to get the vaccine. That would, to me, would not be a great thing for us to do. I think we need to make sure the people, health challenged, elderly, individuals, teachers, bus drivers are vaccinated first. And I haven't had the shot, but I've had COVID. It's a terrible thing to go through, but I'm willing to step back and just wait until those people that are in a lot worse position than I am get that shot. So I don't want to do anything that sees us as competing because we're city employees. That's the only thing I'm worried about.
I'm going to go to Councilmember Burke and then Councilmember Kinnear. I'll come back to you.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's important for us to articulate that everybody getting a shot helps the entire community. And just because one person's getting it doesn't mean it's taking away from somebody else, because we need that herd immunity. We need a certain percentage to get the vaccine. And, as May starts rolling around, everybody's going to be eligible. So, and we have, we have really been wasting a lot of them from different agencies because they don't have enough people to come. So I think, I personally would like the stigma of a healthy person getting a shot to go away because I think we just need folks to get vaccinated. So I just wanted to say that, not necessarily to combat what Councilmember Stratton was saying, but just as another viewpoint, that sure, we definitely need to protect people who are really vulnerable, but also healthy people are going to need to get it eventually. So to kind of maybe drum down that that negative stigma of people getting it that are healthy, because I think healthy people are going to need it too. So I just, that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Councilmember Kinnear?
I will echo that, Councilmember Burke, absolutely agree. And then the second point is not everybody has access to a website, a computer, internet connection. So to say that we're going to direct people to the health district website, for a lot of people that just doesn't work. We have to make sure that we're getting information out, probably via TV or phones. When they call, they tend to get a little frustrated at the long wait, so they're not getting their questions answered. So that was my concern about, not everybody's got connectivity. So that's it.
So, Sarah or Amber, do we have any anecdotal data or a survey of how many city employees have had the vaccine shot? Have we just sent out a survey? Have you had your vaccine shot, just so we know what kind of numbers we're working with?
I'm going to let you take that one, Amber.
Okay, we don't have that information. I think we have some preliminary anecdotal data from the public safety, from fire and police, but not for general staff. We do have some scrubbed data that just is looking at age by department to see if we can gauge really more of who would be eligible, to see, again, kind of, would it be of value to invest our staff resources in standing up some kind of a clinic internally. I think there are some nuances between maybe this and like the flu shot, where essentially everyone in the city is eligible for a flu shot. So there's a lot more, we could put a lot more people through that. And I think there's also maybe a lot less apprehension around flu shots than there is around the COVID vaccine. So we definitely are actively, having these conversations and trying to figure out where is the balance of, investing our time and our staff resources and standing something like that up, or leveraging the resources that are existing already in the community. And again, like Sarah said, right now it's sort of, there's a couple of different factors. One is access to the vaccination, or the availability of vaccination. The second is, who's actually eligible, which right now is still a pretty narrow portion of the population. And we have to go with what the levels are according to the state, which is not directly related to profession. So just because we work for the city doesn't necessarily make us a higher level of priority. And then also that third piece is, again, kind of there still is a lot of apprehension around, getting the vaccination among certain people. And so it's really trying to look at all of those things and figure out what's the most efficient and effective way. But I hear, and I know Sarah hears, what everyone is saying, which at the end of the day is everyone wants to reopen. And what's the quickest path to that? And we definitely are actively engaged in those conversations, both internally and externally in a lot of different areas. So can certainly take this feedback and try to figure out if there are things maybe that we haven't considered yet, or what might be the best path forward based on all of those different factors.
Thanks, Amber. I agree. Just to wrap this up, I definitely will be creating a report on the work that we've done so far to Councilmember Mumm's suggestion, and then perhaps proposing what our directional options are and what the weight of risk is for each one. That way we can continue this conversation with some documentation about what we've done and what we can do.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Amber. We look forward to hearing from you both again. As you can see, this is the topic that's most on people's mind. Great. All right, we're going to end up with our monthly financial report from Paul. Paul, you can take us home.
Thank you very much again, Councilmember Wilkerson. I'm going to stop my video, share my screen. I believe the reports are on PDF page 63 of the packet. Okay, you should be able to see the first report, which is the increases or decreases to the general fund for the month of February. This was an easy one to put together for Amy. There were no changes through SBOs or anything for February. There was the one that you all passed for the encumbrance carryover in February, but it actually booked in January, since that's when we had started that process. Any questions on this one? I'm going to assume not.
Keep going.
Okay. Moving on to the intra-fund budget transfers. And again, this is a report that shows money moving from one type code grouping to a different type code grouping outside of a normal contractual services to supplies or within the salary benefits areas. You can see the grade lines are the position changes, typically reclassifications or progressive promotions that happen throughout the year, and a couple of other changes which were capital related, which were originally budgeted for either maintenance or contractual services, which were then changed through the budget transfer process to the proper area. Any questions on this report?
Next.
And I will wrap up with our short PowerPoint on the monthly reports. So for the general fund through February, general fund revenues are approximately 6% below budget, which might sound like a lot, but it's really probably nothing at this point. At this point in the year, we actually anticipate booking $0 in sales tax and property tax due to accounting accruals. There's I don't know if Michelle's still on the line, if she wants to explain accounting to me again, but they book and debit and credit out the property tax and the sales tax from period 13 and period 1, so it ends up looking like we're not bringing in anything, even though we actually are bringing in revenue, of course. So we have about $6.4 million collected against $6.8 million budgeted through February, and this is all against a $207.9 million current revenue budget. So again, you can see very small at this point in the year. General fund expenditures are approximately 4% below budget through February, $30.9 million in expenses against a $32 million budget. Salaries and benefits make up the majority of that. They're about $2 million under budget at this point. And the other bullet that we update every month is the uniform overtime. Through February, police and fire had spent 13% and 33% of their respective annual overtime budgets. A closer look at the general fund revenue. You can see the chart there on the right. So it's about $400,000 difference between actuals and what we expected through February. It's actually up 1.6% compared to fiscal year 20. And as we know, this is all before everything happened last year. Through August, taxable sales, and that might be needing to be deleted. I'll move on to taxable sales on this slide. In fiscal 20, taxable sales across all categories were down 2.9% compared to fiscal year 19. You can see the breakout by industry off to the right. Through December, and just a reminder, we have the 2-month lag in reporting. So December activity is what we get in revenue for February. So through December, retail trade was actually up 7% over the prior year. Construction was down about 4% from the prior year, and accommodation and food services was down about 32.4% fiscal 20 to fiscal compared to fiscal 19. Overall, total taxable sales for fiscal 20 were approximately $5.9 billion. This is a new look that we are bringing back. This is monthly general fund report sales tax, looking at different counties and different cities across the state. And these percentages that you see in this very busy table in front of you, these are the monthly changes in sales tax revenue that each of these localities brought in from month to month. So these are the distribution amounts. And as a reminder, again, I tried to do it in the parentheses at the top. February distribution is actually December activity. So from left to right on this table, the first column is a selection of the counties and cities across the state. The next column is an approximate annual total for sales tax revenue. And then you see 13 months of month-to-month percent changes. So for example, on the Spokane City line, about $49.5 million in annual sales tax revenue. From November to December activity, or January to February data for 2020, we went up 17%. And then from December activity to January activity, February to March collections, we dropped 22%, which you can see is kind of in line with all the other localities. After you get your holiday spending, you typically see a drop in the new year. The final column all the way to the right is the year-to-year percent change for the current month, in this case, February. So February 2021, which again is December activity, to February 2020, which was December activity, we're down 1% in collections. I did want to highlight these 3 months on the chart, June, July, and August, which would be April, May, June activity from 2020. So this was the beginning of the impact that we saw from the stay home, stay healthy order, the lockdown and quarantine from 2020. You can see most localities had decreases or slower than expected increases or changes in their June collection, their April activity. And then they saw a large spike in May activity or their July collections. And we tried to look back and see what this means. We're not really sure, basically. The stimulus funding came out in April, so maybe that helped a little bit with the May collections and May spending. April activity, June collections were so far down from what they normally were that they had to go up, basically, for May activity, July collections too. So we're still digging into this a little bit, but this is just sort of a different way to show you the activity that's going on around the state and around the different counties. And I'm going to send all this out at the conclusion of the meeting as well. And then this last little slide is on monthly general fund report expenses. And again, through February 2021, general fund expenses approximately 1.1 million below budget, 3.5%. And then you can see by category, salary benefits, the largest, 15% below budget, supplies, about 41%, which again is not atypical this time of year, and services around 16% above where we expected. And that is all I have. I'm happy to take any questions on any of that.
Any questions for Paul? All right, hearing none, we are at the end of our Finance Committee meeting. We will be meeting again on Monday, April 19th, same time, same Zoom station. And I leave you with, may the luck of the Irish be with you. Take care and we'll see you. Bye-bye.